That was cool! Woo! That was rad. High five!
Hi, my name is Rita Edna Adet Amiot. It's August of 2023 and we're here at Leanne and Nick's home in Lake Geneva for the big family reunion. And we're about 33 people, counting the little ones.
You made this mess. Are you proud of yourself?
Yes, I am.
Roll with me, take you for a ride, just come and see. Take a look inside, yeah, it's all you need. This gon' be the vibe, cruising through the sky, yeah, we feeling alright. Take a leap, throw a little smile, jumping in the seat. We gon' be here for a while, yeah, it's all you need. This gon' be the vibe, cruising through the sky when I take you for a ride.
What's the strategy going in this?
Keep your eye on the ball at all times.
It's like Forrest Gump used to say.
Try not to fall down.
Smile and kick butt.
I love pickleball. Number one reason, the learning curve is a lot easier, okay? So unlike tennis where you're about 100 feet away, you guys see this blue outline? So there's 2 pickleball courts per tennis court. The Leanne Pickleball Reunion. Let's go! The front of your hand, this is the forehand side of the paddle, and then you also want to get comfortable with the backhand side. Ball here, get out of here. We got some necks. Oh yeah.
You're gonna fall down, you're not even playing yet.
Okay. This is called rally. We're just gonna rally back and forth.
Cruising through the sky when I take you for a ride. Ay, straight up, we gon' see you later. Turn this 2-door coupe to an elevator. Fly, go ahead, wave to the haters. I ain't seen them in a while, they must be out the radar. Ay, jumping through the window with the bass. Came across the country, now I'm stateside. Hit the city limits with the roof down. Only let me tell you for a ride. Take you for a ride, just come and see. Take a look inside, yeah, it's all you need. This gon' be the vibe, cruising through the sky, yeah, we feeling alright. Take a leap, throw a little smile, jumping in the seat. We gon' be here for a while, yeah, it's all you need. This gon' be the vibe, cruising through the sky when I take you for a ride. Hey, oh, hey, oh. Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. Yeah, oh, yeah. Cruising through the sky when I take you for a ride.
Oh, we had a great reunion. I'm 82 years old. I drove here on Wednesday from Crookston and it took 10.5 hours to get to Lake Geneva. All my kids were there, 8 grandkids and 8 great-grandkids also. Had a wonderful time at Leanne's and Nick's house in their beautiful yard and beautiful home. Everybody brought food. I love to bake, so yes, I brought everyone's favorite, 5 kinds of desserts and 3 kinds of breads. I'm very happy when I can bake. Nick gave airplane rides and Leah's husband, Reese, did paramotoring and the little kids just loved it. Well, we all did. And he had a drone and it was wonderful. Everyone gets along. The weather was nice. Getting to know the little ones some more and enjoying my family, catching up with all the news. That's the best part, you know. Everyone is polite and helps out. And I'm very proud of all my children and their spouses and or partners. I love them all.
Growing up, when were you born?
November 26, 1940, at home on the farm. 6 years later, I had a baby brother. I grew up on the farm. It was called Louisville Township. We had a large garden. We had a collie we named Brownie. And my dad and uncle found this little fawn and took him, and we raised him to be a nice grown up deer. And then when it was hunting season, they would paint a big red ring around his neck, so and all the neighbors knew that was our deer and don't shoot it. My dad farmed with his own brother and stepfather, and we lived kind of on a hill and then in the woods, and then we were by they called it the Black River. And I used to go by myself all through the woods and cross the river on rocks and just wander all over, and no one ever worried about me. And my sister said I always just got to play on the farm because they all had to work on the farm, see.
What jobs did they have?
Well, just drive the tractor and help with the baling and the animals. We had chickens and pigs and cattle. I went to country school all the time. When it was I was in 8th grade, there was only two girls. A neighbor girl and myself was 8th grade. And then in my freshman year, I went to Red Lake Falls, rode the bus to the high school. And then at 13, we moved to Crookston. It was only about half an hour from where we lived on the farm. And I graduated from St. Joseph's Academy. My grandparents lived on the same farm. We were total French, the whole family. They came down from Canada. When they talked French, I could understand it. At the time, church was in Latin. Every Sunday we went to church, and we went to church at St. Dorothy, Minnesota. That was about a half an hour. You know, we were told, you know, to pray a lot so that you could go to heaven. And we always sat in the same pew in the church. It's like everyone had their own pew. And went to communion. And we always had to wear a little veil. It was just a crocheted little headpiece. Burnt wood. My dad, they would cut wood, but our stove was half electric and half wood burning. So, and that was also our heat, was the wood burning stove. Wow. We always had the telephone that I can remember, but it was on the wall and it was a crank. And we had no television till we moved to Crookston. Like on a weekend, we would have picnics in the park at either Hewitt or else in Red Lake Falls. A lot of the uncles and aunts and cousins would meet. It would be picnics all the time in a park. We were lucky if we could go to town once a week, and a lot of times I had to cry first. So they would take us after church. In Dorothy there was a little store where you could buy penny candy and stuff like that. And then you knew everyone there because they were in church also. We had to wear uniforms, green uniforms with a white blouse underneath. I didn't mind that because we didn't have a lot of money for clothes. And I loved, though, math, algebra.
Okay.
I did. And that's what, when I graduated, I got a job running a bookkeeping machine for a construction. Because we were Catholic, everyone sent their kids to the St. Joseph's Academy in Crookston. And the high school there was for all girls, and boarders even. Those kids from other towns would come and board there. Then also I started working at the nursing home in the kitchen doing dishes, and some elderly people, about a dozen of them, would come into a dining room and we would serve them, and we'd run the dishwashing machine. And I got paid 35 cents an hour, and then later I got a nickel raise. And I did some babysitting for neighbors and stuff.
And then how did you meet your husband?
Well, my sister was dating his cousin. I was brought along because they always went in groups, friends, the guys and the gals, they were all friends. And I danced a lot with him that first night, and then we started dating. Andy Amiot. Well, his name was Andrew, but we called him Andy. And he was 3 years older than me. And he lived on a farm closer to Red Lake Falls. Right after he graduated, he was hired at the county, Polk County Highway Department, and he was in charge of the surveying crew. Got married.
How did you get proposed?
I think in the car. He had a 67 Chevrolet.
Married. How long before kids?
I think a year and a half.
And then the first one was?
Linda. And then 13 months later, Nancy came along. And then 15 months after that, Andrea came along. And then Mark was born. After Mark was turned 6 and he was going to go into first kindergarten, because he was an October baby, so they had to wait. And I was thinking of getting an office job, and then I found out I was pregnant. Then Leanne was born, and one of the neighbors was a teacher, and her baby was born 6 weeks after Leanne, and she asked me if I'd like another baby to babysit, and that's how my babysitting for 24 and a half years worked out. I had very good babies. I did. I had rules. They had to listen to Mom. They all had jobs, you know, and they had to take turns washing the dishes and wiping. And like dads of today are just involved all the time. He would not go to conferences, or even when the kids were in plays and stuff, he didn't want to be involved. And when they'd play, both Leanne and Mark played a lot of ball, softball and that.
And
It's just he wasn't involved till the kids were in college. Then it was like they were adults, so he could visit more with, you know. I remember one time, though, we lived by a slough a block away or something, and they came and told me that Mark was on the dike. I remember running, and I was so scared. And I'd always go to the games. Oh, he was always polite, would always open doors, and you know, that was the thing to do at that time. No, he was a good guy. And we remodeled the house that we bought. When he built a garage, half of it, well, one part of it was his workshop. And he was very fussy, clean. He'd washed his car every weekend. We went camping once. Leanne was a baby, almost every weekend. And the camper, of course. It was a fold-out Starcraft, fold-out. We went to different parks and that, but our favorite place was my sister and her husband owned a cabin at Maple Lake, which was just half an hour from our house. And they also had 5 children, almost all the same age as our kids. That's where they liked to go all the time, because they had a speedboat and a pontoon. And then once in a while, one of them would be able to bring a friend along. It was in 1967. He started forgetting things. He had retired at 56 from the county, but then he started working for this surveying business, and so he got to use one of their pickups, and he would keep locking the keys in the darn pickup. And I thought he was getting dementia or something, because it ran in the one side of the family. Then he started where he could hardly walk, and I took him to the hospital. Oh, and he had a bad headache. And they did a test anyway, and they said, well, we can't find anything wrong. And the next couple days, he couldn't walk hardly at all. He needed to use my mom's cane. And I took him to Grand Forks then, and they did a scan on his head, and they found a big tumor, and it was cancer, but they couldn't do surgery because it had fingers. One of the fingers had broke off and went into his spine, and that's what's stopping him. And in the end, he was paralyzed except for being able to use his left hand. We did take him to Rochester for a second opinion. So it was only 49 days from his diagnosis. Then he passed. Still live in my home and have some very nice friends and cousins. I walk 3 miles a day, and I love to bake, and I like to find a new recipe all the time. Pumpkin bread or banana bread, zucchini bread are the bread recipes I love, and then a coffee cake.
When we were growing up, every year when it was our birthday, she would ask us what kind of a cake we wanted. She had a book, and it was like a gingerbread house, a flower, a butterfly, and we got to pick, and she would create this cake thing for us every year. So that was pretty cool.
Giraffes.
Giraffes.
Was a giraffe.
All kinds of shapes.
Made them feel special. They picked out what cake they wanted.
We didn't have like store-bought
No.
things. We made everything growing up.